Back at it again with using Reddit for video ideas, because this is a conversation that I think does bear repeating at this stage of the Detroit Red Wings and their offseason. You see, we are starting to see teams get eliminated in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. There's still some time before the draft and the draft lottery itself. But for the Detroit Red Wings, whilst we prepare for the addition of new guys to the system at the draft, never mind. The Red Wings gave up their first round pick. Maybe it's not that big of a deal anymore. Who really knows? We gotta have some conversations on guys that are already on the team. And that's why we are talking today about Red Wings forward Lucas Raymond. 24-year-old guy, 5'11", 187, a right-handed player who plays on both wings, but is primarily a right wing. He signed on till the end of 2032, making $8.075 million a year. I'd say that the dollar amount is pretty good for what Lucas Raymond is able to provide. And I say that fully knowing that Raymond actually declined this previous season from the season before. In 2024-2025, Lucas Raymond had 80 points in 82 games played. 27 goals, 53 assists. He had 2 fewer goals and 2 fewer assists in 2 fewer games this season, as he had 25 goals, 51 assists for 76 points in only 80 games played. He was a double point-per-game player, essentially, for Team Sweden at the Olympics, and he was a point-per-game player for Team Sweden at the World Championships and the Four Nations last year. Make no mistake about it, Lucas Raymond has been productive, but he was more productive in the NHL last year. I do have to acknowledge, though, 9 points in 5 Olympic games, that's amazing. The guy was on fire. He was going out there with a mission, trying to put Sweden on top. He was the 3rd most productive player in the tournament, and the highest non-Canadian, since Celebrini and McDavid were above him. Anyways, Lucas Raymond then went on a pretty bad run to end off the season. If we look up here, Lucas Raymond and his splits, pretty sure ESPN has a good page that I want to go out there and see. Here you go. The ESPN splits. They have a very detailed breakdown as to how players score, which teams they score against the most, and what they do pre-All-Star break. So obviously, the All-Star/Olympic break is usually in February. Raymond was a point-per-game guy there. In fact, he was a point-per-game or over point-per-game guy for all of these months before the Olympics. 11 points, 10 games in October, 16 and 14 in November, 16 and 15 December, and then 15 and 15 January. But then after the Olympics, he had 9 points in 14 March games, 5 points in 8 April games. So he did decline. Lucas Raymond, make no mistake about it, he was a less productive player in Detroit post-Olympics, which is why we are bringing up this question, posed on the R Detroit Red Wings subreddit by Imaginary Contact 53. What is Lucas Raymond's ceiling? The Reddit post asks. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I wanted to get some other Wings fans' perspectives. I was admittedly so big on Raymond after his rookie year. I thought he had all the makings of a 100-point player. Since this year was his 5th year, actually, in the National Hockey... Okay, they're saying since his sophomore year, he has improved relatively consistently offensively and defensively, including his microstats. Maybe this is my fault, but I viewed him as someone who has the potential to be a game breaker. He has glimpses of domination some shifts, but it's not the consistency you would hope for. I know he's dealt with injuries at the end of the year, but the last 2 years I really expected more from him. Obviously, he needs to shoot the puck more, but I really believe, aside from Seider, he is the most important piece of this team seeing the playoffs again. You never know how players are going to pan out, but after 5 years in the NHL and not a single season averaging a point per game, I'm starting to have my doubts about his ceiling. Was I too high on him? What are your thoughts? Now, I'll tell you this, when I was talking about Lucas Raymond back in 2019-20, we made the Why I Want video here on the YouTube channel talking about how Raymond was Sweden's version of a Mitch Marner or a Brayden Point. Not necessarily a center like Point is, but Raymond is a guy that can have that rover style, who can play with some really strong offensive and defensive instincts, who's super smart as a playmaker to just move around, dangle around guys, find the open man in space, and just throw the puck over to him. This is a guy that displayed a lot of those elements, plus the mobility earlier in his draft-eligible campaign. And I'd say that for Mitch Marner's sake, I mean, the guy turned out pretty all right. He had multiple seasons where he was at a 100-point pace, but only one season where he actually ended up doing that. Brayden Point, on the other hand, has he scored 100 points in the NHL? Let me just go ahead and check that out here. Brayden Point, Hockey DB, because it loads quicker. Okay, he has not scored 100 points in an NHL season. He's gotten close, though, so I guess there's that. But the comments on this Reddit thread dive into some pretty interesting things. The top reply from N. Durst says, I agree with McClellan's comments at the end of the year. If Lucas Raymond were a little bit more unselfish and he shot the puck more, he'd be a 40-goal scorer. I think that should say selfish. He should be more selfish for him to shoot the puck more. So many times during the year I was screaming, shoot it, at the TV, and instead Raymond would make a pass that led to a turnover or a weak shot on goal. His shot is elite. He just needs to use it a bit more. If he does this and you upgrade the talent on his line, look out. Another reply says, I think he can be a 100-point player if healthy and on a good team. I support this suggestion, Snardvark5 said. Raymond is a 100-point guy if on the right team and line and healthy. His shot is elite. Imagine if he was playing with McDavid or Draisaitl. I'm pretty sure he would have a 100-point season under his belt. Look at what Zach Hyman has done over there. Nearly doubled his production on their dynamic offense when compared to his time with the Leafs. If only we could just find a couple of McDavids lying around, haha. And, that's a great idea. Let's make a video about that later on. Connor McDavid, potentially on his way out, who really knows? If he played on a line with a shooter like Caulfield, Gensel, Kaprizov, Johnston, Gauthier, I could see him hitting 70 assists. If he played with an elite passer like Kucherov, McDavid, Suzuki, Celebrini, Hughes, or Hudson, he could probably score 40. If he played all year on a line with Celebrini or Robertson or Draisaitl and had a good puck-moving D, I think his ceiling is 40 goals, 60 assists, 100 points, give or take a few. I don't think he'd slow down his line mates at all, and he already had a 76-point season this year. Adding 10 goals and 20 assists if he's playing with a true stud line isn't absurd. So it does seem like a lot of fans are pretty high up on what Raymond is capable of, even though he has yet to actually accomplish that. He's 24 years old, so obviously there's a lot of time here. It's not like the guy's on an expiring contract after all. But over the first few years of his career, if you were expecting a guy to have that Mitch Marner-like impact, maybe it's true that the level and the value he provides to the team is in a similar range, but point production-wise, Marner has still been superior the entire time. Another reply goes out there and says here, Raymond is a point-per-game player that reaches high 90s in points, possibly triple digits 2 to 3 times in his career. There was a time I thought he could be as good as Pasternak, but I think Johnny Gaudreau with a bit more defensive skill is his ceiling right now. Another reply said, I thought that one point Raymond could be a Kucherov-type player. Now I think the best comparable for him is Marner. Now hold your horses there. Is Nikita Kucherov the upper ceiling for Lucas Raymond? I mean, this guy just scored 130 points. This guy gets 100 points in his sleep. And, you know, I'd say that that's a very, very high goal. Not too sure if that's the best way to think about it, but with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What is the ceiling of Lucas Raymond? Is this guy more of a Mitch Marner type? Is he a 90-point scorer at his peak? Does he get to 100 one day? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.